Hey guys, Choppadong here, and this is Week 1 NFL. We had to knock a little bit of rust off with box checkers, NFL made easy. We're going to go through it front to back today, and we'll probably do it here in 15 minutes. So grab a pen, grab a paper, and let's show you how quickly you can get these systems down and how quickly you can cut through a slate just looking at what traditionally hits value. From there, you keep an eye on these guys as your 4, 5, 6 star type plays, and you move forward. You're building around them for the most part. You're including them in your core. Most of the lineups should have these types of players in them. And then you're going to mix and match a little bit with the domination station tool, with the cheat sheets, with the other tools and the other coaches, tournament leverage plays, and build in addition to what we're doing here. But the first thing we're going to do every week is we're going to carve up the slate, take the best of the best, the creme de la creme. It's going to be a small list, typically 2 to 3 quarterbacks, 3 to 5 running backs, maybe 8 to 10 receivers if we're lucky, 2 to 3 tight ends, 2 to 3 defenses. And that small list is what we're going to use in most of everything that we do, cash game, tournament, everything, okay? And there's a whole bunch of other tools coming in DFS Army this week that are going to show you how to put all of that stuff together. But this, to me, is the beginning of what I do every single week. So let's dive in. As you know, I'm small ball extraordinaire, Choppadong, coming from DFSArmy.com, one-stop shopping, all things daily fantasy sports. Coupon code KICKOFF is a 20% off discount, gets you in here, unlocks all of the tools, all the content, all the coaches for you to become a better player. Every sport, everything's included. Optimizer included. We don't outsource that bullshit like other sites. We flat out give it all to you right up front. So let's dive into the research station tool. You can see I don't even have the research station called up. So that ought to tell you I'm going in blind here. And I want to try and do this back to front in under 13 minutes because we're going to run out of time in this video. Quarterback is where we start. Ooh, I love the offense tab. That's kind of cool. Quarterback's where we start. We're going to start with the Vegas tab. Actually, we got to kick off that afternoon or that Thursday game, right? We're going to have to do this in most of the games. The only problem we're going to have, so I'll open this up to the side. The only problem we're going to have is honestly the home and away feature. It's not in the DS just yet. But if I look for the favored teams, I can take this text filter, come down to a custom filter, and I can go less than 0. That gets me a negative number. That cuts off all of the underdogs. I don't want underdogs for what I'm doing right now. I want to take these team totals, and I want to cut them out. Get rid of everything that's not greater than or equal to 24. These are my quarterbacks. Okay? Now I've got efficiency metrics that have been posted earlier this week and whatnot, but the bottom line, these are the quarterbacks that typically reach value. They're home, they're favored, they're implied to score over 24 points, and they're efficient. Mahomes, Allen, Wilson, Rodgers, Tannehill, these guys are all on that list. Matt Ryan might just miss the list. Kirk Cousins, Trevor Lawrence, no sample size. Darnold, Garoppolo, Trey Lance, these guys are not going to make that list. You're going to be focused on these guys right up here. These are the quarterbacks you're going to want to include in a lot of what you do. I'm not saying don't use, Jameis Winston in a tournament. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying these are the guys that in your cash games, your safer builds, your smaller GPPs, your smaller tournaments, these are the guys you're going to find in a lot of what you do. And if you look, there's your ownerships. Okay? Some of these guys are going to be a little bit higher owned, Mahomes and Allen. Right? So if you've got other guys in mind, your Jalen Hurts or whatever, that's fine. But just understand that being on the road and being the underdog typically does not pay off the salary. It does when they're cheap, so it could work. But these are generally the guys you're looking for, okay? So there's your quarterbacks, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 quarterbacks to look at. I've kind of got my eye on Tannehill. He's not carrying enough ownership. I might save him more for GPPs or hybrid type builds where I'm getting a little freaky. And in most of my other stuff, I'm going to probably be on a Josh Allen or a Mahomes, whoever the domination station optimizer tends to throw in with the rest of my guys, because we do have some value out there. Let's go find it in the running backs tab. We can save that quarterback for one of the later builds. If I go over here to the running backs tab, I kick off that Thursday game. I go to Vegas again. I want home and favored quarterbacks. See, I didn't go through. I just take for granted that the home guys are showing up. They're not. I had some roadies in there with those quarterbacks, and I want to make sure that I go back and I eliminate a couple of those guys. Like I know Mahomes is at home. I think Josh Allen's at home. Those types of guys. You can find that in the domination station really easily by going to the main slate, looking at this tool here. So if I find my Buffalo Bills, they're at home. I know the Kansas City Chiefs are at home. So there you go. That's one way to cross-check and look at that until that comes into the research station, which it will. There's all my favorites. Next thing I do is I cut out that 24 again. 24 just is a magic number. Greater than or equal to. Oops. Greater than or equal to. I want to include the 24s. There we go. Now, all I'm going to do at this point, I've got all my favorites. I've got all of my team totals. I'm coming over here to the 2020 stats, and I want guys that are getting targeted. That's it. These guys. I want 18 plus touches, and I want some passing game work. Targets, receptions, whatever you look at. But I'm looking at really and truly just these top few guys. If you took these targets and these touches and added them up, you'd get 18 down here. You'd get 18 down to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So these top 4 or 5 guys, that's it. Notice that there is not an Alvin Kamara on here. I'm trying to figure out, well, I guess he's not, this doesn't designate between home and away, so maybe he's the underdog. Is that right? If I run over here and look at the Saints, are the Saints actually the dog in that game? They are. They're the underdog to the Green Bay Packers. That's why Kamara's not showing up. But that is an exception, not the rule. We want to include Alvin Kamara. We want to include some of these guys that may be underdogs because that would only be one box that they're not checking off. See, the boxes, home, check, favored, check, implied to score over 24, check, 18 plus touches, check, passing game work, a few targets a game, check, red zone work, check. Don't tell me Alvin Kamara doesn't get used in the red zone. Don't tell me he doesn't pick up targets. Don't tell me he doesn't get 18 touches per game. Don't tell me that he's not implied to score 24 points or whatever this week. That's the whole deal. If he's only an underdog and maybe he's on the road or whatever, I guess he's at home. Well, he's not, neutral field. But if he's only missing one check mark, he's still a great play. Okay? But if you look over here, most of the time, this is where you're going to see these guys inside the 5 and inside the 10 that are getting that red zone work among these running backs. These are the guys that you want. McCaffrey, Robinson, Aaron Jones, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, maybe a little Mostert, some Chris Carson, some Davis, whatever. But remember, these guys are not necessarily getting the touches that are adding up to that magical 18. That doesn't mean they're terrible plays. It doesn't mean you shouldn't play them. It means you should prioritize these guys first. And again, if we double check the ownership numbers, there's your chalk. Right? Pretty easy to find. This is what we're landing on. We're landing on the chalk. With the receivers, kick that Thursday game off again. And what we're going to end up doing is we're looking at game totals. We don't care about favored. We don't care about home or road with wide receivers. We only care about totals. What we want to see is we want to see anything under an 18. Watch this. So we already did this earlier this week. Less than, less than or equal to, let's do 19 just to show you that numbers do show up. But it's only a few guys. 18.5 is the lowest total on the game. There is nothing under an 18. 18 is an inflection point that leads to garbage time. It's a low-scoring team. It's a huge underdog typically. Here it's an 8-point underdog. And it's a team that's going to be passing late. And when they pass to their number 1, their number 2, their slot receiver types, these guys can pick up garbage time. They tend to hit value in a weird way. And they tend to hit value at lower ownership too, to be quite honest with you. But they're in very, very good positions. If I ship this over and now change this to greater than or equal to 26.5, say, now I've got some receivers to work with, right? Over 24 is great for running backs and quarterbacks and whatnot, but over 27 seems to lead to value more often in receivers. It's the shootout scenario. So I come over here now and I take these targets and I want over 8 per game. So I sort big to little, Z to A, and I come right down here. I've got 10 targets, 9, 8, 7, 7, 7, 7. These guys are close, but no cigar, but they still count, like Julio Jones, Cole Beasley, Debo. These guys, if they get the love, you're fine. But you want to key on a Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, etc. You're going to want these guys to get work. That's their floor. You want guys with floor and a ceiling. You want guys with a floor because they're generally game script proof and they're generally not factored out of a game. Even late in the game, they still throw to them a good bit because they're getting about 8 to 10 targets per game. 8 targets or more per game generally leads to fantasy production. Okay? And we're in a high-scoring game. That doesn't mean that a team at a 25 total is useless if he gets 10 targets a game. It means he just didn't make this list. Okay? So if I scroll over again to the old red zone love, then I see that Devontae Adams got 19 targets inside the 10. I see that Tyreek Hill got 12. He got 6 inside the 5. He's not just a deep threat, guys. 8 for Brandon Ayuk. How about that? If he gets used in the same role this year, bing, you've got yourself a decent red zone play that come in a little bit lower ownership, but is in a really good matchup this week. He's over 27 points implied. He gets the targets. He gets red zone work. You're in there. Okay? Again, your categories. We don't worry about home and favorite. We're either under 18 implied points. We're over 27 implied total points. We want 8+ targets, and we want red zone work. Leads to about a 4-star perfect pick. And your 4-star picks might be your Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, these types of guys this week. That's why they're chalky. Check the ownership again really quickly on FanDuel. There they are. These are the obvious plays. This is just a way to use this. But what you're going to find some days, like this 8.3% in Brandon Ayuk, we already saw he gets used in the red zone. He gets used inside the 10 and inside the 5. It's not a bad play as long as his role did not change. Come over to tight ends. Golly, 10 minutes, dudes. We are flying. This just does not take much once you figure a system out. Once you've pared down a system that has been back tested and studied and historically works, you're good. Home and favored, again, matters when it comes to tight ends. I don't know why. Historically, it just does. So I come down here to the filters, custom filter, less than 0. Bang. There's all my favorites. Team total, again, over 24. Magic numbers don't change. And I want greater than or equal to 24. Bang. This is my short list of tight ends. They're not all going to get the love. How do I know that? Now we've got to go by targets, just like those receivers, and we sort Z to A because that's going to bring the big target guys to the top. Now, you're going to have guys like Kyle Pitts and some guys like that that don't really have a track record yet, but they're in a good spot. So if you want to use a Kyle Pitts, use a Kyle Pitts. However, these are the guys that are a little bit more proven. You got your Kelseys and your Kittles. I don't know about Hayden Hurst. I don't know about Gerald Everett. Tanyan was a surprise. Tanyan did not get targeted a lot last year. He scored a lot of tutties. He did not get targeted a lot last year. Okay? Very FanDuel type play only. No floor on DraftKings really whatsoever. Unless you're game stacking or something, including him with Green Bay, fine. But you're generally looking at your Kelseys, Kittles, and those types of guys, right? There's not really anybody lower on this list that historically checks all of the boxes that leads to value. So you're going to have to gamble. If you can't put a Kelsey or a Kittle in your lineup, you're going to have to gamble a little bit at tight end, and that's okay. When you gamble, come down in price. Don't spend a lot on the gamble. Spend up on your running backs, spend up on your premium wide receivers, maybe spend up a little bit for a high floor quarterback, although that's not always the case. These are the types of places you're going to spend up, though, because these are the types of places that are going to hit that value a little bit more consistently than some low-priced tight end that doesn't get but 3.5 targets per game. Hopefully this stuff's making sense to you now. And we come down here and we look at who gets targeted inside the 5, who gets targeted inside the 10. Of course, it's your big dudes. It's your big names. And these are generally the guys that are owned. Kittle and Kelsey. And Pitts is up there this week. So, again, it's not a terrible situation. I'm checking really quickly to make sure Hayden Hurst is in Atlanta, but so is Kyle Pitts. So that may be a committee. I would expect Hayden Hurst's targets in the red zone to come down and go to Kyle Pitts. I don't know how much. I don't know if it'd be a complete flip-flop. I don't know. I don't care. I'm not going to worry about that quite as much. I would roster him just for the price of $6,000 as opposed to $8,500 or $7,000. I might take a Kittle over for $1,000 if I've got an extra $1,000 burning a hole in my pocket, but I don't see how I'm going to get up to Kelsey this week unless I target it in a tournament lineup, right? Some people are going to. I'm not going to be one. Got about a minute and a half to go through defenses. Thank goodness it doesn't take long. Again, you want favored defenses. I sort Z to A, and I bring those underdogs up. Why? Because I'm looking at the Detroit Lions, and their implied team total is 18.5, right? They're a big underdog. If I've got an underdog 6 points or worse, that's these guys, maybe a couple of these guys, maybe down to the Vegas Raiders. But I'm looking for these guys here that are 6-point favorites or dogs or worse, and their implied total. Like I wouldn't be using the the Browns. They're implied to score 24 points. But I would be looking at the Jets. I would be looking maybe at the Steelers. I would be looking at the Bears. I would be looking at the Lions. And these are the offenses that are underdogs and are not implied to score. So I come all the way over here and I look at their opponents. Bang, San Francisco, LA Rams, Buffalo, KC. These guys, right? Baltimore, Carolina. These are the defenses I'd be keying on. And that in and out in 15 minutes is your box checkers. You've got 3 or 4 at each position. You've got key plays, solid plays, historically leading to value, and you've done it in less than 15 minutes per week. I'm chopping on kickoff, 20% off coupon code. Get in here and ask the questions and make yourself a better player. Peace out, homies. That's week 1.